Welcome to Cheating Tales Diary. Before we dive into today's story, we have a humble request. Please consider subscribing to this new channel. Help us hit our first milestone of 1,000 subscribers. Your support will motivate us to keep bringing you more exclusive original cheating wife stories. And now let's get started with today's story. Dominic Reeves's life wasn't a thriller, and maybe that was his biggest mistake. He was a calm, steady, and a little old-fashioned kind of man. He believed love was earned through honesty, that sacrifices made for family were never in vain, and that marriage wasn't a compromise, but an understanding, one that both people honored. When his 40th birthday came around, he didn't expect some grand celebration, but he did think something special might happen. After all, after 2 decades of marriage and raising 2 kids, a man could reasonably hope that on a milestone like this, the people closest to him would be there. At least a cake, a hug, a simple happy birthday, Dad. But that day, March 23rd at 6 a.m., when he woke up, the house felt strangely silent. No smell of coffee from the kitchen, no kids bustling around, and even Allison's usual grumbling while making tea was missing. Dominic got out of bed, came downstairs, and saw the kitchen lights were off, and there was a note stuck to the fridge. Running errands. Be back by 5. Love you. He smiled. Maybe it was a surprise. He cooked himself some eggs, turned on the TV, but couldn't focus. Then he went to the dining table and set everything himself. 6 plates, napkins, the old Chinese crockery they only used for special occasions. At 5 p.m., he checked the clock again. No one came. 6 o'clock, 7, 8. And then, in that silent, light-soaked living room, his fingers held the phone that had 17 messages. All sent, none replied. Where are you guys? Food's getting cold. Cass, at least text me. He called Allison's sister, Bethany. Her voice came with a slight hesitation. I don't know, Dom. Maybe something's wrong with the phone. I'll call you later. He tried to smile. The kind of smile a man gives when he doesn't even understand why he's smiling. He stood up and looked at the cake sitting in the kitchen. The one with blue icing that read, Happy 40th Dominic. The cake he had ordered himself, put in the fridge himself. Still faintly wrapped in a napkin, the scent of melted candle lingering. Then, his eyes went to Instagram. There, on Allison's profile, was a new story. Theo Bradford, Allison's tennis coach, stood right beside her, wine in hand, with a DJ, lights, and dancing in the background. His son Preston and daughter Cassandra were on the dance floor. About 30 people were in the picture, all smiling, all celebrating. The caption read, Cheers to new beginnings. And below, Cassandra had sent him a Venmo request, $1,800, for Dad's birthday party contribution. Dominic just sat there. The fading scent of that candle now felt like smoke, slowly filling the room. After waiting 3 more hours, he got up. First, he changed the front door lock, then drove to the local hardware store and installed a digital security system with facial recognition. Next, he logged into every credit card, bank account, and college fund. And one by one, he froze them all. Cassandra's school fund, Allison's joint savings, even the old vacation account. Later that night, at exactly 11:42 p.m., Allison, Cassandra, and Preston came home. Exhausted, hair messy, their voices carrying the trace of alcohol. Dominic stood at the door, silent, but his eyes were cold as ice. What's going on, Dom? Allison asked, a little surprised. The door to your new beginning doesn't open in this house anymore, he said quietly. He looked at all 3 of them, and then shut the door. Right behind him, a new digital lock beeped, sealing off an old chapter of his life for good. The next morning, before the sun had even risen, Dominic sat in his car, typing an unfamiliar address into the GPS. Valerie Ortiz, a name a client had once mentioned. He'd only said one thing. If you want clean revenge without touching the dirt, talk to Valerie. Dominic rested his hand on the steering wheel like he was always ready to slam the brakes. The silence from last night had sunk into him. But now, that silence was about to turn into strategy. Valerie's office was downtown, 27th floor of a sleek glass tower. The woman at reception didn't even ask his name. She just typed it in and opened the door. Like Valerie already knew he was coming. Valerie Ortiz, mid-40s, deep brown hair, and eyes that looked like they could size up your soul in a single glance. She motioned for Dominic to sit down and said, "I need the whole truth, no matter how ugly." Dominic told her everything. But when he showed her the Instagram post and Cassandra's money request, Valerie didn't laugh. Her face went stone cold. "You should have hired an investigator already," she said. "I did," Dominic replied, pulling a folder from his bag. Inside were photos of Theo and Allison at a restaurant a month ago, another at a beach resort, and a third, stepping out of a bedroom. Timestamp, 6:12 a.m. A sharp smile tugged at Valerie's lips. "Good. You're not emotional. You're strategic. Now here's what we're going to do." She spread out a map on the table, a battle plan for the legal war ahead. First move, emergency financial freeze. We'll file a request with the court, claiming there's suspicion of fraud in your joint assets. Second move, based on the PI's report, we'll file an alienation of affection lawsuit against Theo. If you caught him interfering in your marriage, he'll have to pay for it. Third move, your daughter's involvement. Dominic's fist clenched. "I can't believe my daughter." He trailed off. Valerie said, "Oh, I can. Here's the list of financial transactions. $200,000 transferred from various accounts to a shell company. Mosswood Consulting. Want to guess who owns it?" Dominic looked at the screen. Cassandra's name. She'd leased a condo in New Jersey. Also, she didn't apply for financial aid at Berkeley because her mom wired the grad school fund separately. Dominic's eyes welled up, but he didn't cry. Valerie leaned in. "The question isn't what they've already done. The question is, what are you going to do now?" Dominic took a deep breath. "I want both paths, legal and shadow." Valerie's face softened for a second. Then she pulled out a card. "Marcus Green, expert in cyber warfare and tech tracking. If your wife hid anything digital, this guy will find it." The next 3 days, Dominic immersed himself in court filings, documentation, and digital forensics. Marcus recovered a string of chats between Theo and Allison, something they were calling Plan D. Confuse him, apply financial pressure, make Dominic look mentally unstable. Parts of the messages that made Valerie sit up straighter. In one chat, Allison had typed, "What if he just breaks? Like really breaks?" That's when Dominic realized this wasn't just betrayal. It was a coordinated attack. One night, he sat alone in his old office, staring at pictures of Cassandra as a child. Her first day of school, that 8-year-old smile buried in his shoulder. That same little girl, now playing a role in his destruction. But this time, he wasn't going to be caught off guard again. He opened a new folder on his laptop. The title, Operation Redemption. He wrote down 3 names. 1. Allison Reeves, 2. Cassandra Reeves, 3. Theo Bradford, and below them, a single line. Justice will be done. My way. And they'll remember every second of it. Dominic was no longer just a husband or a father. He was a strategist now. A man who once played by life's ordinary rules, now turning that same life into a chessboard. And across that board, he was playing against the people he once called family. Not to lose, but to teach them a lesson they'd never forget. First move, disappear. He converted his office into a mail forwarding service. His business was now run entirely by virtual assistants. His physical location? Wiped. He changed his phone number, installed GPS blockers, and masked his digital presence using advanced VPNs. Marcus Green had installed a custom program on Dominic's phone, something that let him track every device his family used without needing their login. Not just locations, but texts, voice memos, photo backups, everything. Second move, surveillance. Dominic had hidden cameras installed throughout his old house, not just in the rooms Theo and Allison frequently visited, but in the private corners where the family felt safe to talk. Preston, his son, who had been silent all this time, slowly began to realize something wasn't right. One day, Preston called Dominic directly. "Dad, I think something's wrong with Theo. He doesn't let Mom go anywhere alone. He yells a lot." Dominic's heart sank, but his voice stayed calm. "Preston, do you want to help me?" After a pause, "Yes." "Then listen carefully." He gave Preston an old smartphone, disguised as a Bluetooth speaker. Inside it was a microphone and a live streaming link, letting Dominic hear everything from inside the house. Third move, flip the narrative. One evening, Allison and Theo filed a report with the local police, claiming Dominic had become mentally unstable, that he was stalking them, threatening them, hiring people to follow them. The same Theo who once posted shirtless gym selfies with the caption, "Fear no man," now sitting in a station, painting himself as the victim. But Dominic was ready. The very next day, he walked into the station, calm, quiet, and placed a thick folder on the officer's desk. Inside were chat logs between Allison and Theo, GPS tracking data, bank transactions, and surveillance footage. When the officer played one of the recordings, Theo's voice was clear. "We'll push him off the edge. Once he's in a psych ward, it's all ours." Everything shifted in that moment. The officer asked, "How did you get all this?" Dominic simply said, "I've already lost my family. I won't lose myself." He was no longer the victim. He was the witness, the prosecutor. And through a carefully timed media leak, he made sure their story, the truth, reached other potential victims as well. A video surfaced from an anonymous account, showing Theo and Allison inside a hotel room, counting stacks of cash. The caption read, "The coach and the conspiracy. This isn't just cheating. This is fraud." And from that moment, everything began to shift. Within a week, Dominic noticed Theo's name had been quietly removed from the Bradford Academy website. Behind the scenes, the school had reopened old complaints, sexual misconduct allegations that had once been dismissed. During that time, Preston sent Dominic a voice recording. In it, Allison could be heard telling Theo, "Dominic's too quiet. I don't trust this silence. He's planning something. I can feel it." That night, Dominic sat in his remote retreat house, a glass of whiskey in hand, and for the first time in weeks, he smiled. His darkness was finally swallowing their light. The next phase was retaliation, not just to strip them of respect, but to burn down their very identity. Until now, Dominic had trapped his enemies using their own words and schemes. But the real strike was still to come. Now was the moment he turned silence into a weapon, and its blade was aimed straight at Theo Bradford's reputation and Allison's public image. First, Dominic reached out to 3 specific clients whose wives trained at Bradford Academy. These weren't ordinary people. They were powerful, wealthy men. And most importantly, they already had suspicions about Theo. "Just give me 3 weeks," Dominic said, "and I'll show you what you've only been feeling in your gut." One of them was Brian Hollis, a real estate developer whose wife took Theo's private sessions. The second, Martin Dela Cruz, a civil engineer. His wife had recently canceled her gym membership, right before charging $14,000 in jewelry on a joint card. And the third, Kevin Miles, a police sergeant. He had always disliked Theo, but never had solid proof. Dominic brought them together and laid out the plan. We won't confront him. We'll pretend. You'll approach him, befriend him, make him feel safe. And when he finally opens up, we record. They all agreed. Within days, Theo started to feel invincible. 3 new high-profile clients suddenly orbiting him, all friendly, all feeding his ego. And during this illusion of control, Dominic opened a second front, the hotel. He contacted the manager of the hotel where Allison had hosted Theo's infamous birthday party. "You forwarded the invoice under my name, right?" Dominic asked. The manager replied, "Yes, sir, just like your family requested." "Could I get the full breakdown, please?" Dominic asked politely. Minutes later, an email arrived. Full itemization. Hotel, DJ, alcohol, decorations, catering, security. Total bill, $36,280. But when Dominic cross-referenced Cassandra's Instagram group story and the peer-to-peer payment logs, he discovered every guest had been charged up to $2,000. Total amount collected, $86,000. The gap between the bill and the collected money opened up a new path: financial fraud. Dominic compiled all the data into a professional PDF report and had Marcus Green generate a custom link that was sent via WhatsApp to every guest's phone. The truth behind Dominic's birthday party. You paid for what? And then came the earthquake. Guests began deactivating their Instagram accounts, posting furious rants on Facebook, even calling Allison directly, shouting, cursing. Meanwhile, Preston, who had quietly been recording, sent over a new video from a hidden camera in the guest room. It was 2 a.m. Theo and Allison sat in the kitchen, tension carved across their faces. Allison: "How is this happening? Where is he?" Theo: "I told you, he's lost it. He's gonna burn everything down." Allison: "There's only $3,000 left in my account. And everything else? It's already in Cassandra's condo." Theo: "Then ask her." Allison: "She's scared of me now." Theo: "Maybe she should be." The clips Preston sent weren't just emotional anymore. They were legally explosive. Dominic forwarded everything to Valerie. She replied, "We're not just filing a case anymore. We're going to erase their footprint." The following week, all 3 clients invited Theo out to dinner, on different nights, and dropped questions that hit like open strikes. "So, you and Allison, just friends? Do those super private sessions happen with other wives too?" Theo stammered, deflected, lied. Every word, every chuckle, every excuse was being recorded. It was time for the final move, one that wouldn't just destroy his character, but cripple his academy. And this time, it wouldn't be a courtroom that judged him. It would be the community. Theo Bradford's layers of confidence were peeling off. The man who once owned every room with his body language now flinched at the sound of his own voice. The ping of a text on Allison's phone made his jaw tense, like every beep was a hidden bomb. Dominic had figured out Theo's real weakness. It wasn't money. It was image. He didn't fear bankruptcy. He feared being laughed at. Enrollment at the academy had slowed to a crawl. Online trolling spiked. And worst of all, some former clients began demanding the reopening of past sexual misconduct complaints. Meanwhile, Dominic made another move. Subtle, quiet, but crucial. He booked an appointment with a court-certified psychologist. Not for therapy, but preparation. If Theo or Allison ever tried to accuse him of being mentally unstable, he would have a certified mental health evaluation ready in his defense. During the sessions, Dominic spoke freely about the betrayal, the pain, and the life he was rebuilding, brick by brick. The doctor looked into his eyes and said, "You're not broken, Dominic. You've been refined." At the same time, Cassandra's world began to crack. Her condo rent, school fees, daily expenses, all of it had once been covered by Theo and Allison. But now, the river of money had run dry. One evening, Cassandra finally snapped at Allison. "Mom, you promised this condo was mine." "Things have changed, honey. You need to adjust." "I adjusted enough. I turned on my own dad for you." The entire exchange, every word, every tear, was captured by one of Dominic's hidden cameras. Then, one night around 1 a.m., Cassandra called on video. The arrogance that used to sit on her face was gone. Her voice was tired, fractured. "Dad, I think I made a mistake." Dominic didn't say anything. "Mom's not who I thought she was." And Theo? He hit Preston today, just slapped him, screamed at him for playing music too loud. This was the moment Dominic had been waiting for, a clear, legal, and human gateway. He didn't hang up. He just stared at the screen and said, "Get Preston a medical report. And send me the video. I'm going to court." The next morning, Dominic walked into court with Valerie, his attorney, and filed for an emergency protection order. They submitted everything: the videos, audio clips, chat logs, the medical documents. The judge listened quietly, and then, after a brief silence, delivered the ruling. Restraining order granted. Theo Bradford and Allison Reeves are prohibited from contacting Dominic Reeves and his children. Further, an investigation into child abuse and financial misconduct is authorized. But what hit harder than the judge's words was the police cruiser already dispatched to Theo's address. 3 hours later, a photo went viral. Theo Bradford, hands cuffed behind his back, in a blue t-shirt, sitting in a police car. The light that once gleamed in his selfies was gone from his eyes. That day, for the first time, Allison felt truly alone. When she returned home, she found a note taped to the door. "All mirrors break eventually. You were just looking too long." And from there, the walls of their fake empire began to collapse. The shift happening inside Cassandra wasn't just regret anymore. It had turned into genuine discomfort. Sitting in the college library, she wasn't thinking about her future. She was haunted by the shadows of her decisions. The promises Theo once made. "This condo is yours. I'll pay your grad school fees." Were unraveling one by one. Dominic saved the video call in which she didn't just express regret. She admitted to the lies. "Dad, he's not just controlling, he's terrifying. He watches me all the time. He checks my phone, reads my texts. And Mom she lets him." Dominic paused and said, "Cassandra, you need to think about Preston now. He's been silent all this time, but not anymore." That very evening, Dominic received a recording from Preston. Theo screaming, glass shattering, then a loud slap, followed by Preston's voice crying out, "Don't touch me." Dominic didn't need a courtroom anymore. He needed a weapon. He called Valerie. Now. The next day, they filed for an emergency custody hearing. Every piece of evidence, the recordings, documents, and psychological evaluations, was included. In court, Allison's attorney tried once again to frame Dominic as unstable. "Mr. Reeves has a history of controlling behavior. He disappeared, changed the locks, restricted funds." The judge interrupted. "And yet he's the only one who came forward with proof. Audio, video, and a clean mental health evaluation. That doesn't sound unstable. That sounds prepared." There was a pause in the room, and then the judge began to read the decision. "The court hereby grants full custody of Preston Reeves to Dominic Reeves. Cassandra Reeves, being of legal age, may choose her guardian. Further, Theo Bradford and Allison Reeves are restrained from contacting the children or Dominic Reeves, pending full investigation." As Dominic stepped outside the courtroom, a police officer approached him. "Bradford residents, we're moving in now." Dominic didn't say a word. He just nodded and looked over his shoulder. That day was something special. Just an ordinary afternoon, but for his son, it was a day of freedom. The police cruiser pulled up to the Bradford residence, red and blue lights flickering like they had come to stop a nightmare. Neighbors peeked through curtains and stepped onto porches, watching the scene unfold. Theo was arrested, charged with child abuse, financial fraud, and coercive control. Allison screamed behind him, "You can't do this to us. This is manipulation. He's the abuser." But the officers didn't listen, because this time, the evidence screamed louder than she did. That same evening, Cassandra arrived at her father's retreat house. Swollen eyes, a bag in her hand, and uncertainty in her heart. The door opened. Preston looked at her, said nothing. Cassandra sank to the floor and broke down in tears. Dominic didn't ask for anything. He didn't speak a word of judgment. He simply placed a cup of tea next to her and said, "We speak truth in this house. We don't live in lies." There were no screams in that home anymore. Just peace. The kind that only comes after a storm. After Theo's arrest, Allison's world started to collapse. The house, once echoing with Bradford's presence, now screamed back at her. Her voice was viral on every screen, echoing in courtroom transcripts, phone recordings, and the silent irony of a town that now knew Dominic Reeves wasn't crazy. He was right. But Allison wasn't done yet. She hired a high-profile law firm, the kind known for handling celebrity divorces with the art of burning everything down calmly. At the very first hearing, their proposal hit hard. $2 million in compensation, 50% of the house, and 30% equity in Dominic's business. "Considering the emotional strain your client caused," her attorney said, "we believe these terms are fair compensation." Valerie gave a cold smile. "Are you sure you want to go this route?" "Absolutely." Valerie placed a file on the table. Chat logs between Allison and Theo, detailed evidence of financial misconduct and tax fraud. "Then we'll be filing these as a countersuit, along with criminal restitution claims." A heavy silence followed. Then one of Allison's lawyers asked, "What do you want, Mr. Reeves?" Dominic took a deep breath. "Nothing." They all froze. "Nothing." "That's right," he repeated. "No money, no house, no compensation. Just one thing. A written confession, signed. Admitting what you did, why you did it, and how. All of it." On the official court record, the lawyer turned to look at Allison. But she couldn't respond. She just sat there, hollow. A tired woman tangled in her own web. Dominic's demand didn't just shake her legally. It shattered her publicly. And in that confession, she admitted, "Yes, I had an affair with Theo Bradford behind Dominic's back. Yes, I knowingly turned the children against their father. Yes, I misused funds and laundered money through fake companies." The court sentenced Allison to 3 years probation, 200 hours of community service, and restitution of $42,000 to Dominic Reeves, solely for financial manipulation. But the most remarkable part? Dominic refused the restitution. It should go to the women she lied to, stole from, and betrayed. The court honored his request. Theo Bradford was sentenced to 5 years in prison, along with court-ordered restitution to every woman he had defrauded. Allison's world was no longer the one built on Theo's promises. Her social circle exiled her. Her Instagram followers dropped from thousands to mere dozens, and her bank accounts were flagged with fraud alerts. Cassandra was slowly moving in a new direction. Dominic told her, "I've forgiven you. But I won't forget. And I don't want to lose you again. But from now on, there's only one rule between us. Honesty." Preston was still quiet. But in his eyes, the trust he now had in his father ran deeper than ever before. That night, for the first time, the three of them had dinner together, silently yet peacefully. No selfies, No Instagram posts, just a real family, once broken, slowly rebuilding. Theo Bradford was now a prisoner, not just behind prison walls, but in the ruins of the fake world he had built with manipulation and pride. Allison, stripped of her glamour and games, now sat behind a reception desk at a dental clinic, saying things like, "Hello," and "What time was your appointment?" to strangers who had no idea who she used to be. But in the midst of all this, Dominic Reeves didn't just reclaim his dignity, he found his purpose. He started a foundation called the Phoenix Foundation, for those who've burned, to help them rise again. The foundation supported those who had endured emotional, financial, and familial betrayal, offering therapy, legal advocacy, and digital safety programs. It didn't just give people courage, it gave them a path. Preston led the foundation's youth wing. He was no longer just Dominic's son. He was becoming a leader. To kids who had watched their parents fight or faced abuse themselves, Preston was a real friend. He started a special program called Real Voices, where teenagers shared their stories directly on camera. Cassandra started volunteering too. She was still broken in parts, but there was humility in her wounds now. One day, while speaking in a class, she said, "I lost my father because of greed and fear, but he forgave me, and that's where my new beginning starts." That same day, a familiar face walked into the foundation's main hall. Allison. She wore a simple black turtleneck, no makeup, light dark circles beneath her eyes. Dominic was reading through some papers in a corner. He looked up and said nothing. Allison walked toward him and whispered softly, "I'm sorry." Dominic looked into her eyes, the woman he had once loved, once trusted, now a shadow of who she was. He said, "I can't forgive you, Allison. Because to forgive, you have to leave something behind, and you burned it all." She paused, searching for words. "I know. I've already lost." Dominic looked at her silently and said one final thing. "I just survived. You destroyed yourself. I didn't have to bring you down. You were ready to fall." Allison didn't respond. She simply turned and walked away, like smoke that had finally learned where it belonged. That was the last time Dominic ever saw her. That night, Dominic wrote one line in his journal. "Some relationships are made of clay, and only after they turn to ash do we see what they were really made of." Now his life still had cameras, but not for surveillance, for transformation. There were still phone calls, but not for spying, for trust. And he still had a family, stronger, more honest, and more alive than ever before. Dominic Reeves looked once more at his old home. The bricks, the porch, the windows. The same ones that had once echoed with the sweetest sounds of life, now just shadows of memories. In the front yard stood that same oak tree, where he once taught Preston how to ride a bike, where Cassandra had painted her first picture. But today, all that remained was stillness and a for sale sign. He gently placed the keys on the ground. As he closed the door one last time, his eyes scanned every corner, as if shaking hands with each crack before saying goodbye. His footsteps echoed out of a life that no longer held him back, and only led forward. This new beginning wasn't just personal, it was public. The Phoenix Foundation had grown into a national network, with branches in 15 cities and hundreds of active members. Dominic was no longer just the founder. He had become a voice. Every time someone in pain couldn't find the words to speak, Dominic's guidebook, Ashes to Action, gave them direction. Preston was in college now, but still spent 2 days a week at the foundation. He'd sit beside his father, help strategize, and sometimes they'd just sit in silence, letting the energy of the place speak for itself. One evening, Preston sat on the porch of the retreat house beside Dominic. "Dad," he said, "we really did something big, didn't we?" Dominic looked at him and for the first time in a long while smiled, tired but proud. "We built a life out of ashes, and the lesson we learned, that's our true legacy." Cassandra was now a regular volunteer. Her life wasn't filtered through Instagram anymore. It was painted with truth. She taught therapy workshops for young girls. And when a child whispered, "There are fights at my house too," she would simply nod and say, "You're not alone." One evening, the Foundation's anniversary celebration took place. Hundreds gathered, many of them carrying faces once worn down by sorrow, now lifted by new hope. Dominic was invited on stage. "Tonight, I don't just share my story," he said. "I share ours. We all burn, in relationships, in betrayal, in the shadows of those we trusted. But if something can rise from the ashes, it's not weakness, it's power." Applause followed, but Dominic's eyes found one corner of the room where a mother held her son close. Maybe that was his real reward. A broken family, healing. The story could have ended there, but not for Dominic. He was now on a mission to teach people how to live again. And when someone would ask, "Did you get your revenge?" he would simply smile and say, "No, I got my life back, and that was the greatest revenge of all." The end. This was the journey of Dominic Reeves, from broken to whole, from betrayal to strength, from revenge to legacy.